Today on Locked On Canadiens, we're talking goaltending. And while Sam Montembeault is the undisputed number one in Montreal, I think it's about time we see Jakub Dobes play a little bit more.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that ensures you don't miss an episode, and it really supports us here on the show. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as That Maybe It's Ian, and I'm joined by Laura Saba, also known as the Actor Stick, on a very quiet day for the Montreal Canadiens. We are in between games in the preseason. Training camp was quiet. They sent Owen Protz back to his farm team, his junior team, and that was it. There's nothing else happening for the Canadiens today. I don't even believe they practiced. So we're using this as an opportunity to take a look at something we didn't look at over the summer much, which was the goaltending. Laura, how are we feeling today on this rare, I guess, off day in this training camp for the Canadiens? We're right back at it with another game soon.
I honestly, truly forgot we never did our goalie reviews. And it's like we're in the next season. Like the preseason has already started. We're in the next season, and we are shamefully only now doing our goalie review. But you know what? That makes me feel okay because I like this goaltending group.
Yeah, it's funny. We focused a lot on areas of need for the Montreal Canadiens over the summer, which I guess is why we didn't really talk about goaltending, because it's one of the areas they didn't need to touch. They
really different from the last couple of seasons. Like, how long was the goaltending of this team a question mark, right? Like, pretty much as soon as we realized that Carey Price was not coming back, even before that, when he was playing through injuries and things like that, we had a big question mark. Who is going to be the goaltender of the future on this team? And now we've got some options.
Yeah. So look, we'll take a look at Sam Montembeault as the number one, figure out what makes him tick and what we can expect for him going into this next season. We'll take a look at Jakub Dobes, who I believe needs to start playing a little bit more, as I'm sure a lot of folks think so as well. We'll talk about why. And then look, the overarching narrative through all of this is that one day this kingdom will soon belong to one Jacob Fowler. We'll try to figure out when that is and whether or not he will be ready when our expectations are that he is an NHL goaltender. So let's start with Sam Montembeault. Look, last year was his best as an NHLer. There's really no debating that. He won 31 games, 4 shutouts, a .901 save percentage, which isn't all that sparkling, a .282 goals against. But you also have to remember how the Canadiens were not all that strong defensively for a lot of the season. Sam Montembeault established himself as a true number one goaltender last year and was rewarded in a sense with both a playoff berth, which he unfortunately got hurt in the playoffs, but also he was a goaltender for Team Canada at the Four Nations. He didn't play. If you own a Sam Montembeault Team Canada Four Nations jersey, you wore it just as much as he did. What are your thoughts from last year's version of Sam Montembeault that we got to see in Montreal?
I think there was a level of calmness that, he was always unflappable. He's not a very excitable goalie, but there seemed to be a level of calmness associated with maturity. When I watched him play last year, like he seemed to be able to shake things off a lot easier. Not that he was ever, that kind of guy that would dwell or anything like that. I've always liked listening to his press conferences in English and in French because he's always so thoughtful. And I get the sense that, he thinks about what he needs to do. He thinks about the game he had and how he can improve. And then he goes home and he leaves it at the rink. That's the impression I get of Sam Montembeault. I think it's a very healthy kind of relationship. And one thing that I will not forget is that a couple of years ago, he had solidified himself, mostly through circumstance, to be the number one goalie for the Montreal Canadiens. And again, circumstances, default, all of that. But he was still going on to support the team members he was playing with in Laval in their playoff runs, right? And I found that really to be heartwarming. Like he's not somebody who is overly preoccupied with himself. He's not. He's very chill, right? He's a likable guy. He's not intense. He's nothing like that. He just seems to really like being a hockey player and just really like thinking about improving himself all the time. Like I really find that. And so when he was invited to Olympic camp, I don't think it was just one of those courtesy things because, he was by default the third string goalie for Four Nations. I truly think like they're like, okay, this is a goalie that belongs at this camp.
Yeah, I think so too. I also think that, at the Olympics, they won't just run one goalie the entire time. That's not historically how those tournaments go. You play a lot more games than you do at Four Nations. You play more round robin games, especially against lesser opponents. Maybe you want to give your number one a night off. You can afford to play your backup in situations like that. I very much see Sam Montembeault as the ultimate teammate. The
Yes.
image of him from last season that I think will stick with me forever was game 3 of the playoffs. He's unfortunately pulled from that game due to injury. He did some serious damage to his groin. Jakub Dobes comes in, wins the game, and there's just a shot of Dobes in the hallway, in the tunnel, going back to the locker room, and Sam Montembeault is in like street clothes. He's in like the Canadiens training t-shirt. And he's got like he has the biggest smile on his face for his teammate. Like that could have been an opportunity for a player to, and maybe he was hurting inside because he didn't get to finish that game and he earned it through that season. And it would have meant a lot for him. He hasn't won a playoff game. Jakub Dobes has won more playoff games than Sam Montembeault. But in that moment, he was beaming with pride for his teammate, knowing full well that I think Sam Montembeault knows he's going to be back there and in a situation where he will be winning playoff games. I will always see that moment. He's got both hands on his shoulders, just like so excited for his teammate and his friend and Jakub Dobes that I find myself, this is a player I will always root for, regardless of whether or not he's wearing the jersey that I like. I'm rooting for the guy.
Even if he goes to Ottawa.
Okay, let's not push it. But yes, even so, I will always in the back of my mind, if Ottawa were to win a game with Sam Montembeault in net, I would grit my teeth and go, I'm very happy for you, Sam.
Yes.
Like I find that he is, we talk about model Canadiens a lot, model Montreal Canadiens. We were just before we went on air, we were talking about Tyler Toffoli. Like that's a guy, model Montreal Canadian, wasn't here long, made his impact, loved every moment of him being here. Montembeault is in that same category for me.
Yes, very much so. And I'm really hoping that Zach Bolduc also turns out to be that way. And Alex Carrier, to a certain extent, like Alex Carrier is obviously a little bit older, a little bit more mature, has a little bit more experience in the National Hockey League, but they all seem to appreciate like the opportunity to play. Like I think it's a bit different with Toffoli not being a hometown player, but I think they wear the weight of being a Montreal Canadien very well. And there's something about Samuel Montembeault. He doesn't have the same magnetism. He's not as magnetic as Carey Price, but he is so likable. He's so endearing. So like you have different forms of affection towards them, but you appreciate it. And I think that the weight of being a Montreal Canadiens starting goaltender is not lost on Samuel Montembeault. I just really love how he's able to handle it and deal with it.
Yeah, I often in my mind compare his situation to that of Jocelyn Thibault. In that, he was tasked with being the goalie after Patrick Roy, right? Sam Montembeault is tasked with being the goalie after Carey Price, which is not easy to do. Like I don't think many people would succeed in that effort. And Sam Montembeault, to his credit, has not made us forget about Carey Price. We still know that history is there. It's one of the biggest regrets of the last 20 years of the Montreal Canadiens is not winning with that guy. But I am not worried about goaltending because Carey Price isn't here. Like Sam Montembeault has solidified that for me in a way that I think Jocelyn Thibault also did in his own way. But the Canadiens were so bad after that. Like it was not totally a comparable situation, but I find that they're kind of similar in that regard.
Absolutely. I think that Samuel Montembeault, like over the course of last season and a little bit before, we'd be like, who's going to be the number one goalie? And we get listeners being like, Samuel Montembeault, he's going to be the number one goalie. And I think he's done that. The Canadiens, if they are as good as they are hoping to be this season, they need barely above average barely above league average goaltending from Sam Montembeault, but I think he's more than capable of that. He was above average last year. There's
Yeah,
no he was really good in some Travis Yost had him number 3. I can't remember what stat he used to kind of manipulate that outcome.
probably like goals saved above expected. Like
Yeah.
I think that Sam Montembeault does quite well in that. From a save percentage standpoint, he's a 901. Like
Yeah.
they could get into the playoffs with their starter being a 901. That's all
Yes.
you need.
Exactly. And I honestly, truly, I just want him to do well. And I don't I don't want people to think that I don't think he's up to par, because he is. He's up to par
Yeah.
for sure.
I agree. I agree. All right. While we love Sam Montembeault, I don't know that the Canadiens will be able to get by with him playing 62 games like he did this past season. So we look to the backup in one Jakub Dobes, who rose to that role last year. We'll figure out what can we expect from Dobes in his, I guess, second season in the National Hockey League, and can he play more for Montreal? And we'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Look, I love using FanDuel. It fits how I like to bet. I love player props. I love the anytime touchdowns. I love building parlays out of those anytime touchdowns. It's really fun to follow along, especially with those primetime games. As you're listening to this, Thursday Night Football is going to kick off tonight. Why don't you jump in on the action with FanDuel? It makes those games more exciting, whether you're watching your team or keeping an eye on some of your fantasy players who are playing in that game. So you're ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. All right, we're back. So we're going to talk about Jakub Dobes. I want to take you back a little bit though. So a few, not this past season, the season before, Montreal was running the 3-headed goalie monster because they didn't want to lose Caden Primo for nothing. And they ultimately didn't. They traded him for a draft pick. So cool. They got something for him. But they also had Jake Allen in net. They ended up trading Jake Allen for some picks from New Jersey. They then thought, okay, we're going to roll with Montembeault and Primo. And Primo very quickly proved that he couldn't handle that. The Canadiens made the right play and called up Jakub Dobes to make his NHL debut against the defending Stanley Cup champions on the road in Florida against the Panthers. And he shuts out the Panthers in his first NHL game. And I thought, it's going to be really hard for him to continue to live up to that. And obviously, he's given up goals since then. But I don't think the shine has come off of Jakub Dobes' start in the National Hockey League. No, I still feel very optimistic and very I feel good with him in the net. Do you still feel that way about him?
Can I tell you why?
Yeah, do it.
Because he doesn't lose confidence.
No.
When he loses, he doesn't lose confidence. There's some games, and I've not watched a game. I do not remember watching a game last year. I know there weren't many, but we're saying oh, Dobes had a bad game. I've had thoughts where, oh, he might have had a bad period. Oh, there were some goals where I don't think you should have let them through. But every single time, I don't think I could say that he legitimately, objectively has had a full bad game. And even when that happens, he does not lose confidence. He stands tall. He doesn't act like a rookie. He acts like he's been there forever. He acts like he's been there, right? And I think it's really funny because he seems to be able to have the ability to trash talk a little bit, get under people's skin, which is not his job, but he's able to do it. I thought that was really funny. That just those moments where he was the one trash talking. Wasn't he the one that got someone else in trouble one time? I feel like in the off season there was this
he was behind the brawl in game 3 against Washington.
Oh, he was the one, because he was the one running his mouth.
Yep, and we were at that game in Buffalo where he said something to Jordan Greenway that made him very upset. Not enough to do anything about it in the first half or second half of that home and home against the Canadiens. But I love that this kid is this cocky. I think, especially as an up and coming goalie, one who I don't know what he projects as in Montreal, considering the guy we're going to talk about in the third segment in Jacob Fowler. But I think you need to have that degree of I'm better than you and you're going to hear it. I love that from goalies, especially because it's kind of a thankless job in the NHL. They're sort of like kickers in football, where a lot of times we only really talk about them when they're doing poorly. You know,
Yes.
um, I love that Dobes might have a screw or two loose, and I love that
Yes.
he makes it everybody else's problem.
It's so funny because then he doesn't care, right? Like it's like that whole thing where he like riles someone up and it's the Mad Men meme where the person's like freaking out and he's just like, I don't even think about you at all.
Yeah, I I I feel very good with him in the net. Last year, he was a 909 in the games that he played in Montreal. Obviously, that shutout in his first NHL game. Uh, Hockey Reference has a quality starts percentage. He's exactly league average at like 53% of his starts are quality. That's just like right what you want as a backup, right? Like, because there are times where a backup's going to come in and he's going to play against a bad team, and you don't need a quality start every time against a bad hockey team if you're a good hockey team. You're just looking for somebody who's not going to just hemorrhage goals against for every game that he's in. When he came in the playoffs, it was obviously a step down from Sam Montembeault because Montembeault was playing really well to that point. It was obviously a step down, but it wasn't so far where you're like, oh, well, this is over now. It still felt very much like the Canadiens didn't lose all that much between the two goalies. Whereas, like, if it was Montembeault to Primo, even though Primo was playing great in Laval at that point, if it was Montembeault to Primo, it's a different story, right? Like it felt like with Dobes in net, there was still a chance in that series. Now, like I mentioned, Sam Montembeault played 62 games last year. I feel like you have to get more runway out of your backup, right?
I want 32 games out of Jakub Dobes this upcoming
Really?
season.
That
Yes.
seems like a lot, but I don't think that number's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I
See?
think if things are going well for them, like, that's a great mix to have. You're keeping Montembeault so fresh for the playoffs should they
Right.
make it.
It's enough for to take a full load off of Montembeault. It's enough for us to get a full look at how well can he play with a lot of starts, but it's also like not enough to have any conversations about any 1A or 1B. That's a number 1 goaltender and a number 2 goaltender. There's no confusion, no challenge, no nothing. Samuel Montembeault gets to run his own show. Now I think it'll be closer to like low 20s, which again, I would really rather see Samuel Montembeault play max 50,
That would be ideal. I also
especially
think that
with
the
all the
Canadians.
back-to-backs. The
Yeah.
schedule this year is crazy because of the Olympic break.
Yep. Yeah, and Montreal, because of their position in the Eastern Conference, is always high up on those numbers. It's like them in Toronto and Buffalo. Like, those guys always lead the league in back-to-backs played. So I completely agree. Like, just there should be the Canadiens should be at a point next year where there should be no reason Sam Montembeault is playing both games in a back-to-back, which happened this season. There were times where it happened, but there were also times where it was a question of whether or not they will play the backup. It should not be a question. It should be
Yeah.
automatic. You're looking at a Thursday and a Friday, or a Friday and a Saturday game. Dobes is getting one of those. Like, it
Yes.
needs to be automatic at this point. And I hope that his performance in the playoffs allows Marty to feel confident in making that decision. It's to this point, that's not totally. I mean, up until last year, he didn't have that option because Primo didn't hit the way that they wanted him to. I also think that Dobes plays a really important role this year because the Canadiens are still in the information gathering stage when it comes to their goaltending. The guy we're going to talk about in the third segment, in Jacob Fowler, is the monster that is behind these guys. Like, I joked, this kingdom will belong to him at some point. So Dobes needs to prove, can I be a reliable backup? Do I want to be a reliable backup in the National Hockey League, or do I want to be a starter? Is Montembeault going to shift to that backup role? So I think, like, Dobes can, as a backup, start to solidify his role within this team as it moves forward. I don't know what your thoughts are there. Like, does he project as if and when Fowler becomes a starter, is Fowler the back, or is Dobes the backup?
It's possible. It's entirely possible. You know what I mean? Like, and it also depends, right? Like, if he has potential that's greater than that, eventually he's going to get traded. But if he works as a backup, there's absolutely no reason not to keep him around until throughout like Fowler's early career too. Just because like I just remember every year we had a different backup for Carey Price, and every year it was an adventure. It would be nice not to have an adventure in that position. It would be nice to just be like, this is reliable. You're probably going to end up paying him a little bit more than you would any other backup, like if you were just rotating bodies, right? We just think about how good Jake Allen was when he first got here, right? The reason they re-signed Jake Allen, and he got a little bit more than you would expect from a backup goalie, because they needed him to play that much, and they could rely on him to play that much up until the point where they could no longer do that and had to trade him to New Jersey, right? I'm just like, I'm envisioning that he's going to be a premium backup, but you know what? Like, that's the price you pay to be a contender.
Yeah, Jake Allen was a premium backup, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the whole thing, was when you're paying for a sports car like Carey Price, you pay a lot for maintenance. And Jake Allen was that maintenance. I remember that analogy being what was sold to us when they brought in Jake Allen, and it made sense. The Canadiens don't make the Stanley Cup playoff final, let alone the playoffs, if Jake Allen is not there in that bubble season. So having a valuable backup, a good backup, especially at the price point that they're paying Jakub Dobes, like if he can be that, we're in really good shape. All right. I've called him the monster that is dwelling behind these guys, waiting for his opportunity to strike. It's Jacob Fowler. We're going to talk about his progression as a professional goaltender and when we can expect to see him take the net in Montreal. And we'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. All right, we are back, and we have a mailbag episode. As you are listening to this, we're recording it today, Thursday. It'll come out on Friday. So send us your questions. LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com is our email. It's probably the best way to get in touch with us. But anywhere we post things, we are at Locked On Canadiens. You can find us there and send us your questions as well. Before we move on to Jacob Fowler, how many backups of Carey Price can you name? Like
Oh,
how
wow.
if I like say a number and I'll see if I can beat that number. Like
Okay.
how many do you think you could name?
Oh, wow. I can think of 5 so far.
Yeah, I feel like I could do 5 or 6. So
Okay.
let's start naming. Like Al Montoya.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have him. So Charlie Lindgren.
I wouldn't have. I forgot about Charlie Lindgren.
Yeah.
Jake Allen. We just talked about Jake Allen. That's 3.
He was one of mine. Peter Budaj.
Peter Budaj. Yes.
Yes.
Do we count Dustin Tokarski? Because I think
Yes.
he ended up backing up Price the next season. So Dustin Tokarski. I think that's 5.
Yes. That's 5. Who was the other one I was thinking of? Oh, man.
People are yelling at us in the comments
Alex
right now.
Auld.
Like, oh, it's Auld the Bald. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That Alex Auld is a really good one.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could say Yaroslav Halak. That's 7. So we did pretty good. We did better than we thought. Hey, if you have a backup for Carey Price that we missed, some obscure human being, put them in the comments down below. I would love to hear it. I guess Caden Primo, we forgot him too. 8.
Caden Primo, yeah. Who's the one that like was it Al Montoya that like Columbus scored 10 goals on?
Yes. Oh, they left him. That was a lamb to the slaughter. That poor
Yeah.
guy. They left him up there for 10-0 because they're like, well, Carey Price has to play tomorrow. We're not putting him out there. Sorry,
Yeah.
Al. You go deal with it.
Was Antti Niemi a Montreal Canadian?
He was, but I don't know if he backed up Carey Price because I think he was brought in because Price was hurt.
Right.
It could go. I'm honestly not sure. Someone fact check us on that one. I really enjoyed this. Remembering some goalie guys who were not. These were not even Carey Price. These were guys.
These were guys.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about someone we're hoping is more than a guy in Jacob Fowler. We got a good look at him last year in the Calder Cup playoffs with Laval. We got a good look at him in his first preseason game where he did not allow a goal, I believe. Is that right? Against Pittsburgh? Yeah, he didn't give up a goal.
Yeah.
That bum Sam Montembeault was the only one who gave up a goal in that game. Joking, obviously. That was the joke. Look, I think if you needed him to play a few games in the National Hockey League right now, I think he could do it. That needs to be the ultimate temptation the Canadiens resist. Yes. I think that they need that's why Dobes being good is so important, and Kaapo Kähkönen being good is so important because they need to not think, well, let's just put Fowler in here for a game.
No. I was gonna say, like when you said like, he can, I was about to say yes, but let's not. Let's just
Exactly.
not, right?
It's a luxury to
Yeah.
have him in a position where go dominate in the American Hockey League,
Yes.
play 55 games in the A, and we'll see you maybe next year backing up. Or maybe we
Yeah.
just see you start in Laval again until you're ready to start in the National Hockey League. I don't know.
The conversation with him needs to be really clear because the runway needs to be long. You don't want to rush this guy. You don't want to give him any identity crises like Caden Primo had.
Yes.
You don't want to have him come too soon, not just with the expectations, because then you've got another three-headed monster. What do you do with Dobes? What do you do with Samuel Montembeault, right? But I
Yeah.
firmly believe that when the Montreal Canadiens are true cup contenders, that Jacob Fowler will be on the NHL team at that point. Now, I don't know what happens between now and then. I think, given the choice, like if you ever come to a crossroads, much like we had with Jaroslav Halak and Carey Price, if you come to a crossroads, the Montreal Canadiens will choose Jacob Fowler. I don't think that they would be wrong in that decision, but I think that they need to really not come even close to making that decision until a couple of years from now, because he's going to play in Laval this year. If he does the thing next year where he comes up for a cup of coffee, God forbid there's an injury or someone tweaks a groin or whatever, like next season, I'm more than okay with that. But the runway needs to be long, but the conversation with him needs to be really clear so he doesn't start getting impatient, because you don't want to ruin a goalie of the future. And up until now, all signs have pointed to the fact that he is a goalie of the future.
Yeah, I go back to obviously that Yaroslav Halak trade, right? It was obvious what goalie they were more invested in. It was the goalie that year who they kept giving the opportunity to, even though that season it didn't make sense to continue to give him that opportunity. Yaroslav Halak was the better goalie that year. I think of Carey Price when they traded Cristobal Ue to keep him in that net. I mean, that was before Halak happened, but that was still like at the top of everyone's mind. They are more invested in this young guy. They spent a 5th overall pick on him. Obviously, they didn't spend that draft capital on Fowler, which is why I think like it buys them more time, because they're not, while they are invested in that player, they are not so invested that they will do something like that. They will move on from whatever goaltender they need to move on from only when Jacob Fowler makes it undeniable. And I think that's the right way to go about this. I still think trading Cristobal Ue when they did was a mistake. To this day, I still think like they should have ridden him into the playoffs. Like just keep him around. You don't need to move him. I still am like, Bob, what were you doing?
I think he used to call him a racehorse. There was some sort of horse metaphor he had with Carey Price. Thoroughbred.
Yeah.
He called him a thoroughbred.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was really overly emotionally invested, which is not to say that Carey Price didn't turn out to be one of the best. That's not, like we've loved Carey Price having here. Like we talked about it so much when he got fake traded to San Jose. But I just think that being that invested in a particular player is dangerous, because Mark Bergevin kind of fell for that too. He was so invested in Shea Weber and Carey Price, right?
He was so invested in Caden Primo in a sense. Like
Yes.
didn't let him develop at all. It was like he's ready, bring him in. Like we've kind of watched these two guys go on very similar career trajectories to this point. They've dominated at their collegiate levels. They've, Caden Primo didn't really dominate at the AHL at that point. He was okay in the AHL at that point. But like they were so anxious to move him into the NHL. Caden Primo continues to be the cautionary tale here. And I know they're different guys, they're different demeanors, they're different goalies, but the mentality of treating them like this is going to belong to you soon. You need to, we are going to bring you in slowly. Now, does he start a game in Montreal this year, Jacob Fowler? Just the odd game. Maybe Sam Montembeault has the flu. It's the second half of a back-to-back. They don't want to go back to Dobes. Do they go, Fowler's not playing tonight. Maybe we put Fowler in for a game.
I think it depends on if they need the points or not. If they are well and truly coasting into a playoff spot, they call up Kakkonen. Kakkonen, yes. Yeah. I was going to call him Kapanen. I'm like, that's a totally different guy playing a totally different position, but on the same team. That's what they do. If they are If they don't have a lot to lose, they call up Kakinen. But if they need a win, they call up Jacob Fowler.
Man, I don't even disagree with you. I think it's crazy though that we're like, well, if we need an arm out of the bullpen, it's the kid. Like
Yeah.
I find myself also going to that mentality. It's going to take some supreme willpower from that front office and from that coaching staff to not want to make that move sooner, should they need to. They're right now, like we've mentioned, Montembeault, Dobes, no reason for Jacob Fowler to be anywhere near Montreal other than Laval. Like, there's no reason for that to happen. So I hope that this episode is stressed to people how much we like the current goaltending situation in Montreal. It's very, very good. Very excited to see how it evolves, how Dobes continues his NHL journey, how Montembeault continues to make a name for himself across the league and maybe starts a game at the Olympics in the winter. That would be crazy to think about, considering where we were when he first got to Montreal, playing most of the season with an injured wrist, to Olympian Sam Montembeault. It's very fun to think about.
Yes, absolutely. And I do think like we should be excited, and we can let ourselves get carried away in our imaginations as long as we don't behave inappropriately towards each other when we have thoughts and feelings and fun opinions about this team.
Yeah. I agree. To which I say I want to respond to a comment that we got regarding my thoughts on Xhekaj, because I will be doing this. So I went off a little bit on Xhekaj in the last episode about the bad penalty he took to negate a Canadiens power play and also put them shorthanded. I don't know the name of the user, Laura. Do you have that?
Yeah, it's Joel McG. Let's go with that.
Well, thank you for the reply. The reply was essentially, if he scores a point, you're not allowed to talk about a penalty that he takes. To which I say, bet. I'm totally on board with that. If he takes a penalty, but in that game scores a point, you won't hear a peep from me about that penalty. And if you do, I want to hear about it. Let me know that I messed up, because I think that's a fair trade-off.
Wait,
yeah, go ahead.
Can I talk about the penalty then?
Yeah, I'll just sit here stewing, just so mad. You'll see like steam coming out of my ears. Yeah, I think that's fair. That comment said nothing about Laura, just me. I'm not allowed to do it. So I'm nothing but a jester for you and trying to entertain you and keep you guys tuning in. So thank you for that constructive piece of feedback, and I'm very happy to oblige. Because if I'm talking about Xhekaj scoring a point, we're in pretty good shape. All right, let's get to our trivia and head out of here. Yesterday's question was about the Xhekaj brothers, each scoring in the same game.
Yes.
When was the last time the Habs had a pair of brothers score in the same game? We knew it was the Kostitsins, but when? The answer turns out to be December 23rd, 2009 versus the Carolina Hurricanes. In that game, the Canadiens won 5-1. Andre Kostitsin scored in the first period with assists from Camilleri and Thomas Plekanec, and Xhekaj Kostitsin scored his first of the year from Thomas Plekanec and Scott Gomez. All in the first period. Both of those were in the first period. Montreal was up 4-1 at the end of the first, and that was enough, because then Glenn Metropolitan scored on the power play. Glenn Metropolitan had 2 power play goals in that game. Man, that guy rules. That was so fun. I miss the Glenn Metropolitan experience. That's peak guy. That correct answer was given to us by Joss Dulay on YouTube. So thank you for playing. That was a name I had not seen to this point. So welcome to the Trivia Thunderdome. Super Rain and Good Sport, you have company. So keep an eye on that. Today's question, we talked a lot about goaltending, and I think it's only fitting that we talk about a Montrealer who we lost in the goaltending field as of late, which was Bernie Parent, who passed away this week at the age of 80. In honor of the late, great Bernie Parent, Parent's first NHL win came in 1965 in Montreal as a member of the Boston Bruins. He was a Bruin well before he was a Flyer. Boston won that game 3-1. Who scored Montreal's lone goal in that game in 1965? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Send it to us any way you know how, and we'll shout you out on the next episode of the show. And that's going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you so much for tuning in and for subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Doing that ensures you don't miss an episode, and it really supports us here on the show. Like I said, we have a mailbag episode. We're recording it as you're listening to this on Thursday that evening after the game against Toronto. So send in your questions. We'll get to them after we cover the game. And we love the mailbag day. It's always our favorite episode. Very much looking forward to what you guys have cooked up for us. You can find us everywhere on the internet, Locked On Canadiens. mostly Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok is where we're posting things. LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com for email. Send us your mailbag questions. Send us pictures of your pets wearing Canadian stuff. Send us fun stories about your times in Montreal. We love to hear it. We love to hear from you guys. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow with the mailbag after the Canadiens and Leafs face off. We'll see you then.